up a spot, I guess, because we just said it. We had him tied. At the number 8 spot, we had Gordon Hayward, who is a former All Star, who's compared to Warren, who's never been an All Star. Hayward has shown that production to be the man, and he's going to Charlotte to be the man.
Yeah, you just have to hope, like we said in one of our other videos, that he just stays healthy, right? If he happens to not only we're not sitting here saying he's going to have another tragic injury, but if he even has an injury like it was lingering in the playoffs for Boston, that hurt him a lot. Even when he played, he wasn't Gordon Hayward. I think he was averaging well under 12 points per game. He just wasn't efficient. He just didn't look like himself, and you could tell that his body was hurting. Charlotte needs a good version of him, and if they get him, this spot's very justified because it is a guy who can do it all. We had the doc on Bojan, a bit on TJ, but Gordon Hayward, I mean, both ends of the floor, he's pretty reliable, I would say.
Yeah, and he's someone who can move that ball. He can be a primary ball handler or secondary ball handler. I think that he's going to fit in very well in that Charlotte team. There's a lot of good shooters in that Charlotte team. He's going to be able to go in there. He's going to be taking the ball up the court. He's another. We like to talk about Jimmy Butler again, but he's a similar player to Jimmy in that way, where they run the floor, they play the good defense. But one thing I find about Gordon is that he's very overshadowed. He's undervalued, especially since his time in Boston. Because he was considered the fifth best player in that team, fifth best player, maybe fourth.
Yeah, I mean, an interesting stat with Hayward too, going back to the injuries, is last year when he had 3 days or more of rest, he was the most efficient Gordon Hayward that we saw last year. On 3 days or more of rest, there was a guy who averaged just under
Or
22, 22, 7, and 5. So, I mean, yeah, of course, when everyone gets rest, it's going to help. But I feel like a guy like Gordon Hayward, it helped a lot where he's still coming back in. I feel like he might have a lot of ghost pains and things like that where mentally it does take a toll on you and you just don't feel like the same guy some nights. And when he actually did have a couple of nights off, got to hang out and got to not worry about the game, I think it helped him a lot. And that's where, again, I think Charlotte's a good fit, where guys like Miles Bridges are so athletic and are such good defenders. They get to take off kind of the more strains, and Gordon Hayward just gets to be that smart, IQ, efficient scorer that he's going to be, and obviously reliable on the defensive end, too.
and he's a vet, right? He's gonna teach these younger players that he's playing on winning teams. He's gonna kind of start whipping them into shape. Last year was not a good year for Charlotte ball, and this year is going to be a much better one.
Yeah, and
It's a good idea for Michael Jordan to bring in Gordon Hayward.
yeah, when you look at Gordon Hayward, you don't think of him as an imposing player, but I mean, it's a guy who was sixth in rebounds, a small forward with 6.5. It's a guy who, again, in assists, he was ninth with 4. He's good everywhere. He's fifth in wins added. There's nothing bad you could say about Gordon Hayward.
He's put up 5 assists years before. That would be like top 40 in the league right now.
Exactly. Like other than his health, there's nothing about Gordon Hayward's game that you could say is bad. So that's
He's a
why,
very technically sound player as well, especially for his position. One of the
absolutely.
most.
Yeah, and we saw him get better year after year, like we talked about Bowen, but same with Gordon Hayward. Just little bits by little bits in Utah, he was getting better and better and better, and then fortunately came to an abrupt end. But yeah, Gordon Hayward definitely deserves a top 10 spot, and I feel like he'll definitely prove it this year again.
He'll be given more of a chance to prove it this year. He might actually go up 1 or 2 more spots. He's probably not going to ever crack the top 5 right now, unless something miraculous happens or he leads Charlotte to a playoff spot and then plays great in playoffs. That's not too likely. But with that being said, he could go up a spot or two because Gordon Hayward in his prime at his best is arguably a top 5 small forward in this league.
I would say if we had the prime Gordon Hayward, I would take him over the guy we have at fifth this year.
Yeah, I would as well. Well, we'll talk about that soon.
We will.
I would probably take him at number 4, to be honest. But again, we'll talk about that soon. So right now, we don't have Gordon Hayward in his prime. We have Gordon Hayward after an injury. Gordon Hayward after being the 4th star in Boston. Gordon Hayward after being a bench player in Boston. So
So
until he can showcase that, his difference, that he's probably going to stay there.
yeah, but still a top 10 player. Nothing
Still a
to
top 10 player, even after we talk about all these negatives. Because
exactly.
to his game, there's no negatives
Exactly.
aside of his health. But moving on from